Okay, thank you for purchasing the FA2000 silo from Ruwac Industrial Vacuums. We're going to overview the system with you today to give you an understanding of how it's supposed to be set up and how the system will operate. It's very quite simple. We have a FA2000 silo. It's a dual cartridge filter unit. It's connected to a rotary airlock that'll continuously discharge the material down into your supplied super sack. The super sack is hung by the chains, and you can put a pallet underneath it and get access from the front where you can pull the super sack out for emptying. The way the system works is we have a inlet connection right here on the side where you just have a long flexible hose for all purposes of showing you. This is going to be connected to your central tubing. The inlet, then the material will travel in the inlet. Inside of this machine there's a false wall, so when the material comes in the inlet it's going to hit a false wall and all the material is going to drop down into the hopper chamber here. Then the rotary airlock will spit the material out. Now if for some reason a rotary airlock stops functioning, or if the rotary airlock isn't turned on for any reason, there is a sensor inside of that hopper that is a full sensor that'll alarm out and tell you that the hopper is full. Somebody needs to come over and maintain the rotary airlock. But while you're operating the system, the rotary airlock should be on continuously and it should always be filling the bulk bag. When you need to come over and turn off the rotary airlock to empty a bag, then the material will start filling up in the hopper if you still are vacuuming, and that it's okay. And if it does get to a high set, it will actually alarm out. Now your filter maintenance, there's two filter cartridges here on the front. They are very easily removed with no tools. There's a hand screw on there that you can remove. You pull the filters out, you can inspect them, you can clean them, and you can put the filters back in. There is a device on here through the PLC that's going to monitor the filter health. It's going to tell you what the differential pressure is before and after the filters. It's going to automatically reverse pulse clean them. And if the filters get to a point where the pulse isn't keeping up with that, it will then shut down and tell you that you need to change your filters. So if you walk around here to the side, you'll see that the way we connect this to the system is through a central tubing system that is going to be sent out with the unit. There's a exit port there. This is all zinc coated tubing, compression with compression couplers for every joint. Comes into the blower. This is your silencer. We also have a relief valve. This has been preset at the factory. The relief valve is set for the amperage of the motor. The relief valve is your protection that if somebody turned on the system and didn't open anything, that the motor won't go into surge. So the relief valve is set right for the motor amperage. I believe this motor is 26 amps is the full load amperage on the 20 horsepower motor, and we set this at the factory at 24 amps. So at about 24 amps that relief valve is going to open up to give it plenty of air to keep the blower from surging. This is a weather enclosure that's protecting your blower. This is not designed to be fully enclosed. It is designed to let plenty of air through it. We want to make sure that the air can travel through this system freely. So we have exhaust air here, we have plenty of exhaust air on the bottom, and we have intake air here for the motor. So the motor is going to take air, keep the fans cool, and that's going to protect it from weather. When you come around to the back, you're going to see that you have your PLC control on the top, and you have your motor starter on the bottom. These are all connected through a series of devices on the machine. We'll start at the top of the machine here. We have reverse pulse. It's the cylindrical tank with the two pulse valves and a pressure gauge. That pressure gauge is going to be set at 80 pounds. You're going to hook up compressed air to it. Make sure you bring a large enough compressed air line to it that you can deliver the full 80 pounds to it. We recommend at least a 1/4 inch line to that, and if you bring larger, that's okay. The tank, if you look at the bottom of the tank, there's a little brass fitting. Occasionally you're going to want to come out here and you're going to open that fitting when the system is, it can be running or it doesn't have to be running, and you want to drain the water out if any condensation builds up in that tank. So that's what the brass barb is on the bottom of the pulse tank. Then you have your two valves. Each one of those valves is cleaning one filter independently. It is programmed through the PLC. Every time you shut the vacuum off, the PLC will send the compressed air through both of the cartridges with a time sequence in between. It's also monitoring the pressure before and after the filter. So you'll see that you have these clear air lines that have to be hooked up. One goes to and one goes from. They're clearly marked, so you'll know exactly where to hook them up on the PLC control. But this is measuring the pressure before and after the filter to tell it when the pulse, when you're operating it. If the filters get clogged, then we want to pulse these systems. Occasionally, if the pulse for some reason is not working properly, it could be because up here in the top corner you'll see there's a little gray filter. That is a filter on the dirty side, and we're trying to protect any dust that's on the dirty side from getting into the pulse mechanism. So we do have a little stone filter in there. So for some reason, if the pulse stops working or starts indicating that it's always dirty, we're going to ask that you check that filter and replace that filter. So you have these two clear lines that are measuring the pressure before and after, and you have two pulse lines that are also going to have to be run down the frame into the PLC when you get the system. Then you have your compressed air setting that goes to the regulator. Again, we're regulating that at 80 pounds, and that's fresh compressed air, dry if possible, coming from your compressed air source. On the front here, on the inlet, you're going to notice that there is immediately on the inlet a pressure sensor. That pressure sensor is going to, again, be run down into the PLC. Follow the wire numbers and you'll see where it gets hooked up. That pressure sensor is always going to tell us what the pressure is of the inlet. That tells us the health of the system. That tells us that the system is operating the way it's designed. If for some reason you need to troubleshoot this at any time, that number will be important to us to understand what the inlet pressure is. If the inlet pressure reaches a predetermined set point that we have in the PLC, it's just going to pull up an alarm. It's not going to shut the vacuum down. It's just going to pull up an alarm saying, hey, you know, your inlet pressure isn't what we hoped it would be or what it should be, and we've got to look at the system and see what's going on. So that's another wire that's going to have to be brought down. So you have the differential pressure tubes before and after the filter, you have the reverse pulse, two lines coming from the pulse valves, and then you have the inlet pressure sensor. Now in the cone as well, there is a device that monitors the height of the cone. You can't see that here. However, the wire is going to be run down this frame and hooked up to the PLC. The rotary airlock is directly coupled to a switch on the side of the PLC. This is a separate on-off. The rotary airlock is either on or it's off, and you can control that separately. So you can control that when the vacuum's running, or you can control that when the vacuum's off to make sure that the rotary airlock is clear. So that is how you're going to control the on-off of the rotary airlock, which is right here. The differential pressure gauge that is monitoring the filter to tell it when the pulse is located on the side of the unit. Again, these are going to be hooked up to the clear lines, positive and negative. The filter is located up there on the dirty side, and this is preset to the PLC telling us when the pulse, and it's the PLC is going to tell us the pulse frequency. Now to operate the system, it's quite simple. You're going to bring your main power into the bottom of the control panel. This is actually the motor starter. This has all the safeguards of the motor protection in there. You're going to see that there's a selector switch in here. The selector switch is going to tell you whether or not you want to run this on auto mode or manual mode. On manual mode, it's just going to turn on right from this switch, and to turn it off, you'd have to bring it back to the off position. When you put it into auto mode, then the auto mode, the PLC is going to take over, and the PLC is going to operate the system. So again, if you're just trying to bump the motor to see if the motor direction is going the right way, you're going to go to manual mode and back to off. Or if you ever just want to run this on manual mode, bypassing the PLC altogether, you're going to go to manual mode, run it, and then turn it off. We did close it inside. Normally this is going to be set up where it's going to be on auto. Once it's on the auto, this box can be closed. Now that box is set. There is fuse protection in here. In case anything ever went wrong, you'd have your electrician come here to do troubleshooting. But once this is on auto, now the PLC is taking over. Now you'll notice the PLC box is very simple. We have the motor starter here for the rotary airlock. That's a manual. It's not controlled by the PLC. You physically turn that on or off. We have a green light here. This is your on and off button to turn the system on and off. And then you have a red indicator light to tell us that something in the PLC is not doing right. And if that red light ever is on and you come over here, you want to open up the box and you're going to see the PLC screen here. The PLC screen is self-explanatory. You're also going to get an instruction manual on how to operate it as well. And the PLC screen will indicate what is alarming out. So if you see this red light on and you open the box, it'll immediately be on the screen that alarmed out, telling you what is wrong with the system. From there, you can follow the instruction manual or call Ruwac, and we'd be happy to assist you in walking you through what can be done to troubleshoot the system. Again, the controls for the reverse pulse are already pre-set up. It's going to pulse every time you turn the vacuum system off, and it's going to pulse on demand based on the differential pressure that's being read by the gauge. So the reverse pulse part of this is automatic. So to operate the system, you hit the green button. That's going to turn the system on. Again, this is hooked up to your central vacuum tubing, so the guys are going to come down, turn the system on, then go up on top, hook up their flexible hoses, and go ahead and start the vacuum. When they're done, they're going to need to come back down here, and to turn the system off, we'll do what we just showed earlier. Push the green button in again. There's a 5-second delay. That's going to clear the lines. The vacuum system turns off. Once that comes to rest, you're going to hear the pulse start to go off. There's pulse number 1, and a few seconds later, pulse number 2 is going to pulse the filters. The rotary airlock, it's on right now. The rotary airlock should be on all the time while you're vacuuming. We want to continuously discharge the material into your super sack while you're picking it up. That way that we don't have to let the hopper fill up. We just continually discharge it. The only time you turn the rotary airlock off is when you're emptying the super sack and you don't want it spitting dust all over. You then turn the rotary airlock off, change the super sack out, put a new one in, turn the rotary airlock back on, and let it run. When the operators come over and turn this green light off, they're manually going to have to turn this off as well. So that's been an overview of the FA2000 20 horsepower regen system for Mid-America Steel. If you have any questions, feel free to call Ruwac at any time. Our phone number is 413-532-4030. Again, that's 413-532-4030. Feel free to call us for troubleshooting at any time. Thank you.